As I've already discussed, fascism emerges when an empire is in decline. Fascists are those individuals who recognize this decline, but rather than placing the blame on capitalism, they do so on leftists and immigrants and anybody who is different. Joe Rogan recently posted a meme which exemplifies fascist thought. Hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. Of course, this is complete bullshit. Hard times don't make strong men so much as break them. Good times give strong men more resources to create an even better society. But this obsession with decadence as the culprit can be very appealing. One of the aspects of capitalism is the dehumanization of the individual. That's why leftists emerge. We are fighting back against this exploitation. The people on the right feel this same exploitation, but they place the blame elsewhere. They believe everyone has a duty to fall into line. The word fascism was inspired by a bundle of rods carried by Roman soldiers, which symbolize strength through unity. And therefore, those people that don't conform are ruining society. How many times have you heard somebody at your work complain about another worker being lazy? Or an older person complain the younger generation doesn't have a work ethic? At Auschwitz, you'll see the words, "work will set you free." They believe Jews to be parasites on society, as do conservatives in our own country regarding immigrants and black people. They believe these people will only work if they are forced to. And if they are poor conservatives, they believe these individuals shouldn't work at all, but should rather be expelled from the country since they are taking away jobs from Americans. And anyhow, if they come here, they'll just be living off welfare checks. As the economy worsens due to late-stage capitalism, and the wealthy are unable to take any more wealth from those below, a fragment of the poor are going to look at the situation and place the blame on immigrants and anybody who is different. The fascist is almost always the middle class. They are the people who had a modicum of wealth and privilege, and now that is starting to ebb away. That privilege was built on the exclusion of others. In our society, that is people of color, homosexuals, trans, immigrant, etc. The plutocrats maintain power by dividing the working class and giving some privileges and others none. People on the left recognize that this division is standing in the way of a more equitable society. The fascist doesn't want a more equitable society. They enjoy their status, even if it means they too are being exploited. They don't care if they're poor, so long as they're white and that means something, and they're straight and that means something, and they're Christian and that means something. It doesn't, but they reify these nebulous terms anyway. Status and hierarchy are everything to them. Now, I don't think fascism will emerge in the United States. I think it'll emerge in the southern United States because we have a divided government and divided powers, and I'm not sure conservatives will be able to take full control of the government, or at least they'll find it's difficult to do so. I mean, if they couldn't do it during the Civil War, I have trouble thinking they'll be able to do it now with all of the progressive changes that have occurred, that have taken place in our country in the last century and a half. They will, I suspect, focus more on gaining greater independence and sovereignty for southern states so that an armed conflict will happen that they've been fantasizing about. You know, Neville Chamberlain and Stalin both tried to reason with Hitler, as did the Germans who put Hitler in power, but you can't reason with fascists. They don't live in our world. I mean, that's their great weakness, and we can exploit it if we recognize it. But too often, people think the fascist is rational. Hitler was obsessed with cowboy movies. He wanted a war because he was obsessed with military and fighting. The fascists in our own country want a civil war. For them, war is like Rambo or an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. And they've been playing Rambo for so long in these various militia groups around the country, but no real war has come, and so they've decided to make one. Red Dawn isn't here, but we can bring it about. With a conservative Supreme Court, we're going to see increasing sovereignty for states until we get to the point where a paramilitary group can form in red states that rival state troopers and state police who I suspect will be on the side of these groups anyway. What we see here, of course, is something similar to the SS and the SA in Germany, compared with the German army. When segregation ended in the South and state troopers of Wallace went in at his command, they did stand down when the national troops entered. In a worst-case scenario, what I envision when National Guard troops are sent in this time will be a powerful paramilitary group to fight them, an American Taliban. Now, this is hypothetical, but I think maybe it's the most likely situation because conservatives in this country are becoming increasingly desperate. As their power wanes, we are seeing two very different societies emerge. In the South, they're making it more difficult to vote and eliminating any information they fear might make their children liberal. It's the first time in 150 years in this country that they've started to make their states worse. And it's because they ran out of options. Nixon and George H.W. Bush realized they could fuck over black people and other marginalized groups in insidious ways. With us going after disparities directly, they have no alternative but to turn to violence and oppression. And this is another key part of fascism, that lesser races can only be tolerated so long as they are subordinate. They believe in the great chain of being. There's a caste system in almost every human society. Because some individuals are faster and stronger or smarter, and therefore this idea came about, this leap in logic, that some groups of people are smarter, faster, or stronger because certain individuals are. The fascist sees that some individuals are more talented and therefore thinks his race is. You see this whenever a conservative tries to justify racial disparities. Inequality is an inevitable part of democracy and freedom. They totally circumnavigate the fact that we're talking about groups of people and not individuals. And if you press them on this, they'll reveal themselves to be the racists that they are. If you ask them how group disparities emerge when we're all the same species and we all have the same brains, well, then they'll start making suggestions that maybe that isn't the case.